Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today, it's Rock Most Welcome at you with the weekly comic book roundup, and we're moving on to this week's X-Men titles, as well as Spider-Man and a movie tie-in. Well, a Star Wars comic. And no, it's not an Age of Republic one-shot. Alright, so let's get started, shall we? With X-23 number 12. Alright, so where we left off, after stopping the X-Assassins, modified clones of X-23, X-23 and her clone sister Gabby were investigating a lead on a company called Harvest. However, things came to a head when it turns out that Laura and Gabby's goals were no longer the same. Whereas Laura wants to simply wipe out all of the clones of her and, well, ones that are being used nefariously. Gabby wants to potentially, maybe deprogram them and let them live normal lives. And so, Gabby stormed off, determined to track down a mysterious cargo that bears the scent of Laura and Gabby, and proves she can do it all on her own. So we open up the next morning at Laura and Gabby's apartment, and Laura's not entirely taking it too well that her sister isn't there, so she thinks she hears a noise, goes to check, but no, it's not Gabby. It's just a jar of honey having been knocked over by a mouse. Beast calls, and the two of them talk. And it would seem that Harvest, the company they've been looking into, has been focusing a lot of research on cloning and organ replacement and increasing the healing ability of replacement organ. However, he mentions that increasing the healing ability of replacement organs would definitely be beneficial. And then, so she hangs up, but Gabby calls. Immediately, Gabby says she's not calling for help, but she wants to know what they did to stop that train in Morocco that one time. Because it turns out that somewhere in upstate New York, Gabby, as well as Jonathan the Wolverine, are fighting bad guys on top of a train. Laura kind of does Laura goes out as a big sister, don't need my, to go help her. Turns out the shipment is turkeys. Turkeys with their genes. Turns out that Gabby tried to free them by throwing them out by having them fly out, but that they didn't like it. So they keep going through the train, trying to figure out how to stop it. They come upon a security system, which X-23 manages to tear up. But it turns out there's a self-destruct mechanism that's been turned on the train. And then Gabby kind of has a bit of a breakdown, about it. She should have saved the ex-assassin that they had befriended. But instead, she just let her go. Laura says, okay, well, let's just save some turkeys. Which they managed to do. Also, it turns out that X turkeys are flame resistant and they can fly. So they take them to a mutant-run vegan, a humane vegan mutant-run eco-responsible farm, and the people who run their ass not eat them are like, yeah, we won't do that because we don't, yeah. And so Gabby and Laura talk a bit about, could you even cook a turkey with, their healing ability? And Laura kind of I kind of made a decision about what we were going to do. I didn't ask what you thought. And they also kind of admit that they're not exactly the best. Their family's not the best when it comes to family meetings. As Laura then puts it, we have a history of intense short-lived genetic connections, aka family relationships that end in tragedy. And while Gabby and Laura are on the same page about fighting the people who want to use them, Gabby doesn't want to forget the clones connected to them. She doesn't want to let them go. And that when she gets the chance again, no matter what, she's going to save them for Scout, which is the name she gave the previous ex-assassin. So anyways, the switch to kill them all was labeled TUOKS. Scout is about the reverse, so it's about setting it right. So she said that's going to be her now. It's a mission and a name for now. So Gabby, Laura, and Jonathan the Wolverine head home. And Gabby changes up her costume a bit. The entire issue being narrated by Laura, going on about the important, talking about the importance of family and showing you care, and it's really sweet, really, and it's sad that this is the final issue of the series. After all, Marvel's getting ready for the big Hickman X-Men reboot, which honestly is kind of a good thing. So I'll take it. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to complain about the reboot. I'll bring it up from time to time, especially as certain books end. But I'm not going to complain. All right, moving on. We've got Wolverine: The Long Night, number 5. Oh, where we'd left off. I'll just go through the summary. The town of Burns, Alaska is in chaos. A series of deaths has left everyone on edge, and as far as agents Pierce and Marshall are concerned, Logan is at the source of it all. As the agents and their police escort, naive Deputy Bobby, investigate the trail of destruction, Logan has left in his wake, and his connection to the wealthy Langrock family, and to the mysterious Aurora cult in the outskirts of town, matters become worse as bodies continue to surface. Headless, ripped apart by dozens of teeth, and now a massacre at the Langrock secret drug processing facility. There's a surprising victim in its wake. So, start off weeks ago at Logan's cabin. Sherman approaches, holding the body of Sarah Marfa, all tore up. It's enough to get Logan to listen. So he ends up basically saying, see, that's why we need your help, why we need your claws, and so Logan's like, all right, you got him. And I can't really tell if with the picture if they're trying to say he's popped the hot claws or just regular claws and have the light hit. Anyway, back to now. Which I'm finally managing to get their names right. Agent Marshall's talking with Sherman. In fact, that's who the flashback was. Sherman explaining to Marshall what's going on. Yeah. Turns out that phone records link through. There are phone records linking one of the Langrocks, at least 3 of the victims. As Pierce and Marshall come upon the Aurora cult at an altar. And Brent Langrock is hanging from that altar. Well, except for his head, which doesn't seem to be present. However, the cult does their bit, then they all run off the cliff. So they go to a taxidermy place, because it turns out that there are channels. One of the channels runs from taxidermy place to the Langrock estate. They get there and they open. Someone fires on them from within. And Brent's head's on the wall. As they continue their investigation, they find the bodies of Sandy Evans, Jessica Riley, Sarah Marfa, Rose Takani, Marsha Aquilina, all in the fridge. More trophies. Turns out that Hudson Langrock is the real problem. He's a Wendigo. And he's been bringing his kills to the taxidermy place for trophies. We get a little bit of backstory on the Langrocks. Turns out that when Hudson was a kid, him and his dad went hunting, and Hudson accidentally shot one of the dogs. So Joe had it stuffed and left it in his room. So it was a trophy he deserved. And so, yeah, it's explains that Brent took cues from his father, and one time when he was delivering a trophy to the safe, saw the 2 boys in the yard. And what we see is Brent holding Hudson on a leash as Hudson digs and puts on the ground. At the hospital, we catch up with Deputy Bobby, and he explains what happened. Yeah, he went to the Langrock estate and saw Hudson locked up in a cage and his dad, 2 of them arguing, and then Hudson changed and, well, the cage couldn't hold him. But at that point, Logan was on his way to the truck and ran a burning truck into the place. And Logan and transformed Hudson went toe to toe. Fast forward to a week later, at a Weapon X facility. Agent Marshall is being debriefed by Agent Pierce. Turns out that that Agent Marshall violated the Weapon X Code of Ethics, which Weapon X Code of Ethics. That's the funniest thing I've heard all year, actually. I think. Yeah, the shady government organization that kidnaps mutants to experiment upon them and turn them into living weapons has a code of ethics. Really? But anyway, apparently Marshall intentionally destroyed Ender Ray's surveillance drive. But he explains that he didn't do it intentionally. And he has empathetic programming and some work, which is a work in progress, and it glitches sometimes. If there's anything that the mission has taught him and Agent Pierce, that nothing is what it seems. But apparently there's a 7-hour gap in his surveillance data. So it turns out that Logan took Marshall to one of the old World War II bunkers on what's referred to as the Fingers, which was the rendezvous point for the drug shipments. And we see this going on. Turns out that Logan's got Hudson all trussed up in chains in there. And he explains he tells Marshall he knows what Marshall is. He's a newer model Sentinel with emotional programming. He puts it a tin man with a heart. And Logan says, I want you to do good, but you need to let me. Let me be drowned. Let me be dead. Let me never be seen again. And so, Marshall, goes on to explain, there are 1,000 ways to die in Alaska, but water's the only sure bet for Logan. So, but then Pierce turns him off and leaves the room. We find out that Logan's making his way to Japan. At the moment, he once again dealing with memory gaps. So he says he's gonna put the claws to good use. He may be the worst kind of hero, but sometimes that's what the world needs. And that is that. I'm wondering if the follow-up, Wolverine: The Lost Trail, will be adapted as well. To be perfectly honest, I'll probably opt more for that in a trade format. I think that this actually works better in trade paperback format, all at once, rather than bits and pieces. But anyway, moving on to Age of X-Men Extremis number 4. So, where we left off, the Extremists were beginning to develop feelings. And M has been sent to... Moneta has been sent to have her mind wiped. So we open up with the team taking care of the remains of the last issue. And Northstar notices that Blob and Psylocke seem a bit closer. So he asks Iceman, when did those two get so friendly? And so, anyways, Northstar runs off. Explains that, contrary to what it tells you, he is the fastest mutant who has ever lived. He is apparently capable of traveling at light speed. He chooses not to because the strain on his body will be fatal. But if he wished to do so, he travels so fast that it robs the breath from his lungs and destroys everything in his wake and kills him. If he wished to do so, he could know what it feels like to outrun eternity. It would be the last thing he ever felt. And he often wonders if it will be worth it. After the weekend, Moneta has been returned and seems a bit happier, though Northstar begins to wonder how much did they take from her mind, and does she feel an itch in her thoughts? Psychic scab where all of her memories used to be. Bobby tries talking to Moneta, but it was quickly shot down, explaining that, with the explanation of, she still remembers who we are. So, yeah. But, there's apparently two places on the agenda. A residence of south of the city and a movie theater. Which, and Northstar volunteers to go to the movie theater. He arrives. Richter's there. Apparently Richter runs the place. He just started the projector. Which this actually puts some lines from last week's X-Force in a bit, or from X-Force, from a recent issue of X-Force, in a much better perspective. As I was afraid I missed a part of one of the X-Force issues where Richter had been killed, but no, Richter was believed dead after the events of X-Men Disassembled. So, back at Department X HQ, Iceman is sitting there with Moneta, stacking things and failing. And it's like, nah, you don't need me here for anything, right? Okay, cool, bye. And so, he runs off. And, the question comes up, what if you had a mutant ability that meant you could recall when you've been made to forget? So in the theater, there are couples watching a movie, being intimate with one another. Then Iceman shows up. They talk a bit. Then Richter says, hey, let's, I've got some booze. I'm not going to drink by myself. So I'm going to turn to something nice. So they go on the roof and they drink $15,000 a bottle of champagne. And we kind of a montage of Apocalypse meeting with some of his people. I think that's supposed to be Moneta. They're about to bust them up, but but at the same time, while this is going on, Northstar is reflecting on being a skier. But he also explains why he's also explained why he calls Moneta Bibit. And so he goes on to explain that he knows there's something more. He just can't remember. He's been having a lot of trouble with his memories. He asks if he ever feels like a ghost or haunted by someone. And he says he doesn't know who he is, but he can feel the lack of him like a phantom limb. So every morning when he wakes up, he reaches across the bed for her. But then suddenly fireworks start going off, and it turns out Jubilee's down there in front of the theater, and Iceman asks what she's doing, and apparently she just heard that she is a kid. So now she's just going to burn this whole fucking situation to the ground, okay? She says that they can try to stop her, but she wouldn't recommend it. And then Jean Paul remembers the name of his ghost, Kyle, with Jubilee adding in his name is Kyle Genadu Bobier, and she was at the wedding. And in fact, so was now Northstar remembers, so was Bobby, as well as his twin sister Aurora, whom he just now remembered. So they kind of decided a mutant paradise that removes who we love and how from our minds before granting us entry is not a paradise at all. And thus, Northstar suggests they riot. And to be fair, I really can't argue with him on that one. Moving on to Major X number 4. So where we left off, Major X and McCoy had gone to the Watchtower, the home of the young Essential. But they were attacked by Dreadpool and Scourge, who the two thought were the greatest danger awaiting them. However, the real threat turned out to be the Administrator and his pupil, the Essential. So we start off with a flashback. McCoy, the Essential, and Major X waiting to speak with Namor. Turns out that the waters are contaminated, and Nomar is not happy about it. But Namor goes on to explain that, his people are weak and the waters are putrid and vile, and they would have fared better by never entering this realm. And basically, they want to go back. But the Essential explains that he can't do it. Of course, it's about whether it can't or won't. Back to present at the Watchtower. McCoy and Major X have been taken prisoner by Dreadpool and are being turned over to Nomar and the other Atlanteans. But Major X manages to get free. Fight breaks out. But it turns out that the Atlanteans had an agreement with the Administrator. And that agreement being that the Atlanteans would allow them to extract genetic material from both of them in exchange for turning over the Essential to them. But it turns out this is not something that they have to make sure that the sample is viable, so they can't just, take the genetic material and let them go. It's like, no, you're going to hang out here for a while. Then you can leave. But they've got reinforcements. Eel, Sharkskin, and Undertow. And so, the fight scene. McCoy actually picks up a couple of guns and starts blasting away, managing to at least hit undertow. Then, after Dreadpool takes down one of the Atlanteans, Sharkskin smacks him in the face, but Dreadpool then introduces a sword to Sharkskin. Yeah. So then we get a nice little head-on one-on-one between Dreadpool and Major X. However, the Atlanteans definitely speak Major X's language, and he guys offer him money in exchange for, to side with them. And so he takes it as money. But no sand dollars. They've also managed to destroy the time travel device that Major X was using. But and so Major X believes them stranded. However, the Essential says, no, take my hand. And so they end up on Genosha in front of a bunch of Sentinels. Because where else do mutants want to be but right in front of a bunch of Sentinels? And that is where the issue ends. That's this week's X-Men comics. Now moving on to Spider-Man City at War #3, where we'd left off. Mr. Negative's goons have been Kingpin had been arrested, and Mr. Negative's goons had been causing trouble throughout the city. And in fact, they'd even managed to take down police officer Jefferson Davis, Miles Morales' father. Meanwhile, MJ is trying to figure out who Mr. Negative is. And while looking at the various pictures from the attempt on Mayor Osborn, she discovers it is none other than Martin Lee. Cut to the homeless shelter. Miles has shown up. Apparently, he had the option of either more therapy or work at the homeless shelter. So he's working with Aunt May. Peter leaves him with Aunt May, and May explains that when Peter was about Miles' age, when his uncle was killed, and basically May acted the same way Peter's acting now. But MJ calls up Peter to tell him, hey, so Martin Lee is Mr. Negative. But Peter's spider sense goes off, so he jumps up into a corner and watches as 3 of the inner demon gang members show up and pick up their guns. So, also, Peter was able to find a file which has more vague references to Dragon's Breath, but they're still not sure what it is. And apparently, Peter's cooking, however, he doesn't have the best history. Trust me, buddy, I know that feeling so well. Side note, personal story time. One of my longer relationships, second date, I had her over, cooked dinner for her, and that's how we both discovered she was allergic to oil-based salad dressings. Because I decided to try and add Italian salad dressing to something I was cooking to give us some extra, kick flavor-wise. Good times! Yeah. Anyway, so as he's getting ready, as he's continuing to cook, his crime system app goes off. Apparently, there's been a break-in at Oscorp. So Peter goes off about it, and MJ goes to also check it out. Of course, it's some of the inner demons, and so Peter smacks them around, and security shows up and basically tases his ass. The demons manage to get away, and they now know. They let Mr. Negative know that they know where Osborn is hiding the Devil's Breath. Anyway, Spider-Man explains to Norman Osborn that, it was not a random break-in. And introduces Spidey to Silver Salvanova, the head of Sable International. Turns out that Dragon's Breath is at Sable International Base Camp in Central Park. MJ meets one of the scientists working on it, and he goes over what it is. It's a pet project. It's an AI-controlled genetic code modification, CRISPR, genetic code modification. If perfected, it can cure any genetic disease with the push of a button. Huntington's, cystic fibrosis, poof, gone. But it works too well. The viral delivery mechanism cures a disorder, then goes after the immune system. Eats the body up from the inside out, not just the subject. It's very contagious, spreads to the whole population, and he explains that every rat in the lab was dead and rotting within a week. He was trying to, they were trying to help people, but instead they created a biological weapon. But Osborn won't let them end it, and won't let them tell anyone. Everyone's on lockdown, and then Mr. Negative shows up. Turns out he intends to use it to ruin Osborn. Spidey's trying to track down Mr. Lee. Now, Grand Central Station. But Lee's at Grand Central Station with a whole bunch of hostages, including MJ. Calls up Osborn and explains that he wants Osborn at Grand Central Station, at the Grand Central Terminal in 30 minutes, alone, or he'll have more blood on his hands. It looks like he's about to activate the Dragon's Breath. And that is where the issue ends. And that is our one Spider-Man book for the week. And so now, move on to the Promised Star Wars book. Star Wars Legends number 108. Okay, so back in the 70s and into the early to mid 80s, Marvel Comics published a Star Wars series. They adapted all 3 films, and then they also told at first it was tales between the movies. I mean, when you got 3 years, it gives you a lot of wiggle room. Well, 2.5 years. You're given a lot of wiggle room. So, the things that happen between. However, after 107th issue, with the 107th issue, it all came to an end. Now, anyway, this, number 108, is a one-shot that's actually set to... It doesn't wrap up any plot threads. It kind of it's more of a sequel to a classic story from, actually, Star Wars number 50. So, the name of the issue is Forever Crimson. Chapter 1 is The Legend of Valance the Hunter. Valance was actually a recurring character early on in the series. A former stormtrooper turned bounty hunter. After he was injured and had much of his body replaced with cybernetics. However, Luke and Luke and Luke's willingness to sacrifice himself for 3PO kind of changed Valance's outlook. Then Valance fought Vader and lost. But he didn't give Vader he didn't pass along the name of the farm boy who saved him. It's all this happened on a planet named Centauri. So we took a look with a bunch of scrap traders, picking up scrap on Centauris. Turns out they want it. They got enough, so they're gonna load up their ship and get to their buyer. Yeah, sadly, not enough to scrub it, but hey, on time is better than quantity. Turns out there's a metallic skull within all the scrap, though. Moving on to Chapter 2, Near Misses and Narrow Escapes. Han and Chewie are at a bar on Stenos. A guy named an alien named Slider is trying to hire them. Well, Slider hands him a fruit, saying, this needs to get back to my boss. The whole galaxy may be in danger if it doesn't. And there's a nice pay in it for him too, for Han as well. So, anyway, however, some bounty hunters show up. They're looking for Slider as well, and Slider is like, "Oh no, that's not me." Then they turn their attention to Han, who's like, "No. I mean, I was kind of a big. I'm not a smuggler. I was kind of a big shot in the Battle of Endor, but you know." And apparently, the bounty honorable generals is even higher than one on Slider. However, Chewie, of course, shows up and saves the day, and so they rush out. But in the chaos, Slider is killed. And Jackson and Amasa, Rabbit Bounty Hunter and his partner, show up. And they explain that, and they find out that apparently the boss that they were looking for was Tamina Tage, the villain from Star Wars number 50. Well, they need to get out of here, and because those bounty hunters are inside or after them. Moving on to Chapter 3, A Scavenger's Mistake. So our scrap gatherers from the beginning, earlier pop up. They're being met by a New Republic warship. And the commander messages his mistress. And it looks like all this crap will be enough. His boss tells him that she has no interest in what looks like enough. And then he'll let her know when he's sure. And none of this can be traced back to her. And so that's when he pulls the blaster. And well, yeah. Moving on. Old Worries of the New Republic. Leia's dealing with some alien dignitaries, but an assassin, or TOF, I actually don't recall what TOF stood for. Takes a shot at her, and she fires back and at least manages to get him to fall. Turns out that, and because of this, what any military forces that the New Republic can spare will be sent to support the Mandalorians in their battle with the TOF. The Falcon, however, is coming in and having some trouble. Not responding to hails. Luke is able to stop it from crashing and help it allow it to land. So Han, Chewie, Jackson, and Mesa show up, and happy reunion. And nice little catch up. Now we find out that we learned that it turns out the New Republic warship that met up with our unlucky scrap herders was actually stolen. Crew had been killed, and Dominant Tage had by the force of Dominant Tage, and they were now running around with it. Turns out that everything, the hull has more than enough Durasteel, which of course, however, now since it's been scrubbed, the skeleton of Valance the metallic skeleton of Valance rises and basically goes after everyone. Dominant Tage trying to figure out what's going on the ship. And Tage is taking them down left and right. Finally comes upon a interpreter droid. Who tells him of a legend of the life jewels of the Red Nebula. Separated, they can create a plague. Together, they can restore life. Great weapon or great dose of healing, depending on their wielder. Moving on to the next chapter, On the Way to Forever. So all of our heroes are now all on board the Falcon, heading towards the last known location of the life jewels. Heavily damaged and set adrift Star Destroyer. We're orbiting a sun. However, Dominant Tage has of course claimed the wreckage under interplanetary salvage law and opens fire on the Falcon, which does take a few hits, and however drops off a few escape pods. Most of our heroes disembark and start looking for, And so Dominant Tage sends her forces out, and our Jackson finds the gems. Just as however, he decides that the payday for those is so he's not going to give up. Then Valance shows up and just starts wrecking house. Nearly kills Jackson too, but Jackson kind of understands that maybe it's best if he just gives up his payday to the guy, and so he gets to heal himself. And as he's healing, he gets blasted by Domina, who now intends to start yet another plague with the one of the gems. Fight, however, the droid from the ship is plugs himself up to Valance, gives his battery just enough of a boost at the expense of his own life. And so Valance grabs both the gems and heals himself, but in the process, sacrifices himself. And so, the end of Forever Crimson. That was kind of neat. Honestly, a fun way to celebrate Marvel's 80th anniversary, especially since the rights are Marvel once again produces Star Wars comics. Anyway, as always, this brought links to. That is it. Anyways, that is it for this week's rundown. As always, links to my Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon are in the description box down below. Hit the bell icon to be notified when I put new content. And this is Ron from Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.